"Excuse me, but you're in my spot." The woman looked up from her phone, designer sunglasses perched on her auburn hair, clearly annoyed. She was sitting at one of my 3 tiny tables outside Miguel's Mobile Kitchen, my food truck parked on the corner of Sunset and Vine in Hollywood. It was 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The lunch rush was dying down, and I needed every seat for paying customers. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone wealthy people use when they're not actually sorry about anything. She was probably in her 60s, wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly truck payment, a flowing silk blouse, perfectly fitted jeans, and boots that screamed expensive. Everything about her radiated money and confidence. If this story is touching your heart already, please help me with a like and subscribe. I'm building this channel with so much love, and I need to reach my first 100 subscribers. You can be one of the first to join me on this journey of sharing real human stories. Your support means everything to me, and you won't regret being part of this beginning. But here's what I didn't know yet. This moment would change everything about how I saw success, celebrity, and what really matters in life. "Look, lady," I said, wiping my hands on my apron, sweat dripping down my forehead from the Los Angeles heat. "I don't mean to be rude, but this is a business. Those tables are for customers who buy food." She glanced at my truck, the slightly dented silver vehicle I'd bought used 3 years ago when I lost my restaurant. The paint was fading, and the Miguel's Mobile Kitchen sign had seen better days, but it was mine. Every dent, every scratch, represented a battle I'd fought to keep my dream alive after my restaurant failed during the pandemic. "How much for a coffee?" she asked, surprising me. "I don't serve coffee. This is Mexican street food. Tacos, quesadillas, burritos." "Then make me whatever you recommend." I studied her for a moment. She didn't look like my usual customers, construction workers, office employees on lunch break, teenagers spending their allowance. But business was business. "You want the real deal or the gringo version?" I asked, half joking. She laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed her face. "The real deal, always." 20 minutes later, I brought her a plate of carnitas tacos with handmade tortillas, pickled onions, cilantro, and my grandmother's salsa verde. The aroma filled the small seating area, mixing with the sounds of traffic and distant music from a street performer. "This smells incredible," she said, taking her first bite. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, this is extraordinary." My grandmother's recipe. She taught me everything. I couldn't help but smile. It didn't matter if someone was rich or poor. Good food was good food, and I took pride in every plate that left my truck. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, and we started talking. Her name was Susan. She lived in the hills, and she was between projects at work. She asked about my family, my story. I told her about losing the restaurant, about working 18-hour days to save enough to buy the truck, about my daughter Sophia, who was studying pre-med at UCLA. Did you subscribe yet? Help me reach 100. Your support keeps these real stories coming. You should have your own place again, Susan said, finishing the last taco. Maybe someday. The dream isn't dead, just postponed. She came back the next day, and the day after that, always ordering the same thing, always sitting at the same table, always asking about my family and my plans. On Friday, she brought a friend, a tall, thin man with kind eyes, who introduced himself as Tim. "Susan hasn't stopped talking about your food," Tim said. "I had to try it myself." By the third week, Susan had become part of my daily routine. She'd arrive around 2 p.m. after the lunch rush, and we'd talk while I prepped for dinner service. She told me about her son, about books she was reading, about traveling. I told her about Sophia's grades, about my dreams of opening a restaurant in my hometown in Mexico, about my late wife, who had believed in my cooking when no one else did. One afternoon, a young woman with a camera approached our table. "Excuse me, aren't you?" she started, pointing at Susan. "I'm having lunch," Susan said firmly, but kindly. "Not today, sweetheart," the woman persisted. "But you're Susan Sarandon. I loved you in—" I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. Susan Sarandon, the movie star, Academy Award winner. I'd been serving tacos to one of the most famous actresses in the world for 3 weeks, and I had no idea. Susan looked at me apologetically. "Miguel, You're famous," I said, feeling oddly betrayed. "You're actually famous. Does it matter?" I thought about it. For 3 weeks, she'd been just Susan, a woman who loved my grandmother's salsa verde recipe and asked about my daughter's studies. She'd never once acted like she was better than me, never used her fame to get special treatment. She'd simply been human. No, I realized, it doesn't matter at all. But what happened next would prove me wrong. Fame was about to matter more than I could have imagined. The next Monday, Susan didn't come. Or Tuesday. By Wednesday, I was worried. On Thursday, a black car pulled up to my truck. Susan got out, but she looked different. Tired, stressed. "I need a favor," she said without her usual small talk. A big one. She explained that she was hosting a fundraiser for a literacy program, expecting 200 people, including other celebrities and wealthy donors. Her caterer had cancelled last minute, food poisoning at another event. The fundraiser was in 2 days. "I know it's not your thing," she said, "but your food is better than anything those fancy caterers make. Would you consider it? If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now's the time. Help me reach my first 100 subscribers. This story gets even more incredible. My hands were shaking. Cater for 200 people, including celebrities, in my food truck that served maybe 60 plates on a good day, with equipment that sometimes broke down. Susan, I appreciate the offer, but I can't. I don't have the setup for something like that. You're just a what? A food truck owner? Miguel, you make food that brings people joy. That's not just anything." That night I called Sophia. "Mija, I need your advice." After I explained everything, she was quiet for a long moment. "Papa, remember what Mama used to say? Fear is just excitement wearing the wrong clothes. But what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself in front of all those important people? What if you succeed? What if this is the opportunity you've been waiting for?" Friday morning, I said yes. Saturday night, I arrived at Susan's house in the Hollywood Hills with my truck, 3 borrowed tables, 2 cousins to help serve, and enough ingredients to feed an army. My hands were sweating, my heart was racing, and I questioned my decision with every breath. The house was stunning, all glass and stone, overlooking the city lights. People were arriving in expensive cars, wearing clothes that cost more than most people's rent. I felt completely out of place in my chef's whites and comfortable shoes. "Miguel!" Susan approached with a warm smile, wearing an elegant black dress. "You came." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Good. That means it matters." The first guest to approach my station was an older man in a perfect suit. He looked skeptically at my setup. My truck parked in the circular driveway, my simple serving tables, my handwritten menu. "What do you recommend?" he asked, his tone suggesting he expected to be disappointed. I handed him a taco filled with slow-cooked barbacoa, topped with diced onions, cilantro, and a squeeze of lime. He took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, then his expression changed completely. "This is incredible. What's in the sauce?" "Family secret," I said, gaining confidence. Within an hour, there was a line at my station. A woman who I later learned was a famous director asked for my card. A producer wanted to know if I catered private parties. A young actor asked if I could teach him to make my salsa. But the moment that changed everything happened near the end of the evening. A man in his 40s approached my truck. He had that confident air of someone used to getting what he wants. "Are you Miguel?" he asked. "I'm David Chen. I own 3 restaurants in Beverly Hills. Susan told me about you." He handed me a business card. "I've been looking for someone to head up a new concept I'm developing, upscale Mexican street food. After tasting your barbacoa, I think we should talk." My heart stopped. "You want me to run a restaurant?" "I want you to be the chef partner, 50-50 split on profits, full creative control over the menu. What do you say?" I looked across the party and saw Susan watching us, a proud smile on her face. She raised her wineglass in a small toast, and I understood. She hadn't just hired me to cater her party. She'd given me a stage to showcase my talents to people who could change my life. 3 months later, Abuela's Kitchen opened in West Hollywood. The reviews were incredible. Food and Wine called it a love letter to authentic Mexican cuisine. The Los Angeles Times gave us 4 stars. We were booked solid for 2 months in advance, but success brought unexpected challenges. The pressure was intense, the hours were brutal, and I found myself missing the simplicity of my truck. Some days I wondered if I'd made a mistake. On our 6-month anniversary, Susan came for dinner. She ordered the same thing she'd always ordered, carnitas tacos with extra salsa verde. "Regrets?" she asked, sensing my mood. "Sometimes," I admitted. "It's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I thought success would feel different, more satisfying." She nodded thoughtfully. "You know what I learned after 40 years in Hollywood. Success isn't about getting what you want. It's about wanting what you get and using it to help others get what they want." "What do you mean?" "Sophia's tuition is paid for. You're employing 12 people who have families to feed. You're serving food that makes people happy. That's not just success, that's purpose." She was right. Over the next year, Abuela's Kitchen became more than a restaurant. We started a scholarship program for culinary students. We hired formerly homeless individuals and helped them get back on their feet. We partnered with local schools to teach kids about nutrition and cooking, and every Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., Susan still came for lunch. Sometimes she brought friends, sometimes she came alone, but she always ordered the same thing, and we always talked about family, dreams, and what really mattered in life. The food truck was still parked behind the restaurant, and sometimes, when the pressure of running a successful business felt overwhelming, I'd go sit in the driver's seat and remember those simpler days when it was just me, my recipes, and whoever happened to be hungry. One afternoon, while I was in the truck taking a break, I heard familiar voices outside. Through the window, I saw Susan talking to a young woman, maybe 18 or 19, who was crying. "I just don't know if I'm good enough," the girl was saying. "Everyone says I should give up, get a real job." "What do you love to do?" Susan asked gently. "I want to be a writer, but I'm nobody. I don't have connections. I don't have money. I don't have—" "You know what you have," Susan interrupted. "You have stories to tell. That's all that matters. Everything else is just logistics." She pointed to the restaurant. "You see that place? 6 months ago, the chef was serving tacos out of a food truck on Sunset Boulevard. I didn't know he was talented because he was already successful. I knew he was successful because he was talented. The universe has a way of recognizing authenticity." I watched as Susan wrote something on a napkin and handed it to the girl. "Call this number. Tell them I sent you. They're always looking for good writers." After the girl left, I stepped out of the truck. Susan turned and smiled. "How long were you listening?" she asked. "Long enough. You do that a lot, don't you? Help people without them even realizing it? We all help each other. That's how the world works when it works right." Later that evening, as I was closing the restaurant, I thought about the chain of events that had brought me here. If Susan hadn't sat at my table that first day, if I hadn't been brave enough to take the catering job, if David Chen hadn't been at the party, so many small moments that had led to this larger life. But then I realized Susan was right about something else too. It wasn't just luck or being in the right place at the right time. It was about being ready when opportunity knocked, about treating every customer, famous or not, with respect and care, but never giving up on the belief that good food made with love could change people's lives. Today, 3 years later, Abuela's Kitchen has 2 locations, and we're opening a third. Sophia graduated from UCLA and is now in medical school. The scholarship program has helped dozens of young chefs start their careers, and every Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., Susan still comes for lunch. She orders the same thing. We talk about family and dreams, and I remember that the most extraordinary moments often happen when we're just being ordinary, serving good food, listening to someone's story, treating every person like they matter. Because in the end, that's what fame, success, and recognition really are. Just different ways of having the opportunity to help more people feel seen, valued, and loved. Sometimes I still can't believe that the woman sitting at my table asking for extra salsa verde and wanting to hear about my daughter's grades is someone millions of people admire. But then I remember that being admired by millions is easy. Being genuinely kind to one person day after day, that's where the real magic happens. What's your story? Have you ever had someone believe in you when you didn't believe in yourself? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear how ordinary moments became extraordinary in your life.